Hi, my name is John. Are you considering cost sharing a tree project that involves your neighbors? In this video, I will cover 3 helpful considerations. If you need an arborist with experience in working with neighbors and trees, reach out to us on our website for a free consultation. I've seen it hundreds of times where homeowners want to pursue cost sharing of tree work with neighbors. This could involve a tree that is wholly owned by a neighbor or a shared ownership situation such as a property line tree or hedge, or occasionally if a property has a title requirement for maintenance of trees for an uphill neighbor's view. Each neighbor relationship and scenario can be different, but here are 3 items to consider in this space. Consideration number 1, trees are subjective. When municipalities consider enacting municipal protective tree codes, it many times creates emotional citizenry camps where one group thinks regulation to protect trees is really great, and another group feels it is government overreach. I've seen it on many occasions where one neighbor considers the color of leaves from a deciduous tree in the fall gloriously beautiful, and another neighbor might look at the same tree as an irritation that they have to clean up leaves every year. There's a spectrum of perspective with trees in the area of hazard prevention, benefits versus liabilities, aesthetics, sunlight levels, privacy, and screening. With that said, it is reasonably probable that your neighbor does not look at trees the same exact way you do, because trees are subjective. Consideration number 2, set a low bar expectation for your neighbor. Putting a high level of expectation for your neighbor to look at trees like you do could put undue stress on the relationship. By putting a low bar for tree expectations with your neighbors, it can give you peace and make your neighbor less likely to feel that you are trying to exert your will on them. Let's say, for example, one neighbor is concerned about hazards with another neighbor's trees. The neighbor with the hazard concern sets a high bar expectation that the neighbor who owns a tree will look at the tree like they do. This tree is big and is a hazard. This is a liability to my home and your home. When the neighbor who owns a tree says either directly or through their actions, "I'm sorry, I don't share your hazard concern," the neighbor with the hazard concern gets frustrated and angry and perhaps thinks the owner of the tree is being irresponsible. I've seen this morph into anger, animosity, and perhaps even escalate into attempts at legal action that usually starts with a thought like, "I heard that if I send my neighbor a legal notice, that will really help my cause." Municipalities deal with this all the time. When homeowners adjacent to city parks or city right-of-way owned trees have hazard concerns, the homeowner with a concern lodges a complaint. The common mistake is the assumption that the city has the same bar on hazard prevention levels. The most common bar for a municipality is to determine if the state of the tree is bad enough to establish legal negligence in the event the city takes no action. Very low bar. Once a qualified arborist looks at the tree for the municipality and verifies the low threshold is met, the city worker says, "We don't think this tree is hazardous." The city has a lower bar than the resident filing the complaint. A similar potential hazard scenario can play out between 2 private party neighbors. You are generally better to look at trees through a low bar approach where you give your neighbor lots of grace. The antithesis of this would be an angry, frustrated, and perhaps legal mindset. From my experience, adversarial legal mindsets between neighbors over trees does little other than create long-term neighbor animosity. Other frustrations with neighbors and trees can happen with loss of sunlight when a longtime resident says, "I used to get sunlight in my garden. Now I can't grow grass due to my neighbor's trees." Or, "My neighbor's trees have taken away the view I used to have. They should be more considerate." There's a good chance that your neighbor doesn't think about trees like you do. You are setting too high of a bar for your neighbor. Consideration number 3, the tree financing should follow who is the beneficiary. The word beneficiary is subjective because trees are subjective. A simple way to look at it is who cares. In other words, would the neighbor take action with their trees independent of your tree interests? If the answer is no, it is likely not the neighbor priority. But let's say I'm wrong in that assumption. Let's say they would love to have such and such tree care done, but unbeknownst to you, they have a family cash flow situation of some kind that impacts their family priorities. In that scenario, the proposed tree work becomes a burden to them and they are not the primary beneficiary of some potential tree work. You are. When you look at things from the principle of I am the primary beneficiary, I should offer to finance this tree project, you remove many of those potential obstacles. I see homeowners get stuck on a perspective of, well, that's their tree. They should pay to have such and such tree work done. Winds don't care about property lines. In fact, a storm-failing section of a tree can become your tree as it crosses the plane of your property. If you have a concern and you are a primary beneficiary, why wouldn't you consider financing it? Rather than looking to cost share with neighbors, it makes life a whole lot more simple to plan on financing it yourself. If you found the video was helpful, hit the like button. If you're looking for more information on how to care for your trees, subscribe to our channel.